Welcome to the TLC, the Life Coach Podcast with Matt Halloran. Every week, one of the world's top life coaches, Matt Halloran, will share his wisdom through stories and ideas to help you live the best life possible. Success is only a podcast away. Now please welcome your host, Matt Halloran.
Hello and welcome to our next podcast. I kind of went out on a limb on a couple of podcasts ago talking you through a guided visualization. And while I was doing that, and by the way, I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy it, man, I'd love it if you would all take a second and not only subscribe to the podcast, if you haven't done that already on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, or wherever you're going to go, SoundCloud, but also if you could provide a quick review. My goal, of course, is to get as many people listening to this as possible, not for the glory of myself, but hopefully because I'm hoping these are valuable and they help somebody somewhere at some point. But as I was walking myself through this guided visualization and thinking to myself, man, I'd really like to be on a beach right now. I mean, I live in Michigan and we don't really have a lot of warm beaches this time of year. But there's something so cleansing and so freeing about sitting there and listening to the waves lapping against the shore and all of the things that I wanted you to try to experience when your eyes were closed and you were relaxing, hopefully. But all of a sudden, I got done recording, and I stopped the recording and started doing all of the editing and things that I normally do to try to make these podcasts sound as good for you as I possibly can. And I was flooded with this unbelievable amount of clarity. Because as we continue to age, as we continue to get to know ourselves better, which is really the goal of really what most of your daily activities should be, when you find moments of peace, moments of clarity, and you give yourself the space to truly think of what you want to be when you grow up, where you are in life right now, are you living the life that you've always wanted? Are you working hard and diligently toward living that life? Epiphanies happen because you're giving your mind the space, the silence, the processing time to have these epiphanies. And so I've been looking back on really this 45-year-long journey that I have been somewhat of a willing participant of, sometimes not so willing. But it is still my life, and so I take responsibility for all of this. And I've said to each of you in previous podcasts that I highly recommend that you write down your perfect day. Now, this day, once again, just to remind you, is you can have a perfect work day, if that even appeals to you at all, or you can have a perfect just day. And when you're writing this perfect day, you should be as specific and graphic with every sense that you can muster up in every in every word, I should say, that you write down in this perfect day. What you're smelling, what you're feeling, what you're tasting, what you're touching. And when we're doing guided visualization, we're trying to occupy all of your senses, because if I can singularly occupy all of your senses and focus them in one specific direction, I am turning off all of the other noise in your brain, because guess what? When all of your senses are focused, when all of your senses are occupied, your brain is only going to focus on that one freaking thing. It's not going to focus on the laundry list or the chores you have to do at home or the fact that you're unhappy in A, B, and C. You're just going to give yourself that moment of quiet and calm. And upon giving myself that quiet and calm, I looked at my perfect day. So I sat down and I redo my perfect day as often as I need to, because it is not something that is set in stone. This is not a fixed 10 commandment. This is a fluid, editable document, because guess what? Life does change. Now, you should have a finish line that you're looking towards, but you don't need to have it be a fixed finish line. In fact, it should be many, many finish lines. You should have lots of opportunities to pat yourself on the back and say, hey, you know what, man, I did that. Or I finished that. Or man, that felt really good when this happened. And that was part of my plan. It wasn't just a crazy thing that happened. So many, many years ago when I was in the Navy, I was in a nor'eastern storm. And if you don't know what that is, it's a horrible, cold storm. Usually a lot of rain, and the barometric pressure is really crazy. So there's waves, like huge waves. And my ship was 514 feet long, and we had about 20-foot swells. And so the ship would go up in the air, like, you know how your stomach feels like when you're on a roller coaster, or when you're on a swing, or when you go over a bump fast in your car or on a bike. That was a feeling everybody had all the time, and everybody was sick, except me, because I don't seem to get very seasick because, well, there was a old Navy guy who told me a secret, and I think I've told you this before. A little bit of chewing tobacco, for some reason, worked for me, and so I was one of the only people who wasn't getting nauseous, and guess what? Then they made me stand all of the watches, so I'd been up for about 2.5 days at this point. And if you've ever really stayed up for 2.5 days, now I would have little quick naps here and there, but I was really quite sleep deprived. Everybody was sick. The ship smelled terrible. Very few people were eating. And I was standing a watch called Sounding and Security. And Sounding and Security has two different components, hence sounding and security, that I was supposed to go around and check some very specific areas of my ship, but I was also to check the ballast tanks. Now, the ballast tanks are what keep the ship level, and especially during a really, really crazy storm, those ballast tanks and moving water between those ballast tanks is very important, because if not, the ship can flip over, which would be bad, right, especially in the North Atlantic. So I was wearing one of those cold weather suits, and I'm sure you've seen them on like The Deadliest Catch or whatever crazy show that you might watch about people on boats doing stupid things like I was doing. And I had a thing around my waist, and I would clip into this line that would head to the front of the ship. Now, we were heading in to all of these waves, and so even if the wind was all around us, it always felt like the wind was hitting you in the face as you were walking towards the ship, because actually it was water hitting your face, because big waves would be crashing over the ship, and I would hold on for dear life. And of course I'm still here, so it worked. But it was exhausting. Oh my gosh. I was standing at about a 45-degree angle, leaning forward like those old Michael Jackson videos. And I get to the front of the ship. I'm exhausted, soaking wet, tired. I check the ballast tank, knowing that I would have to go to the other parts of the ship. So I would get to the other side of the ship. So I'd start on the port side, and I'd go to the starboard side, and I'd latch myself in. And all of a sudden, I realized very quickly that as I walked down to go to the back, the aft part of the ship, which is the back end of the ship, it was so easy, because when the water would crush over the bow of the ship, it would push me easily with just all of this wonderful ease. And it became kind of fun. Now I was delirious, mind you, but it was fun because the wind was at my back. There are a lot of times in life where the wind is blowing. And now, again, you can name the wind whatever you want. Buddha, Allah, God, Jesus. It doesn't matter to me personally, because that's your own spiritual journey. The universe, the flying spaghetti monster. Again, I don't really care. But what I do care about is your ability to listen. Your ability to feel and recognize that the wind is blowing you into a specific direction. And I believe if you trust the wind won't take you to places you shouldn't go. So you can do what I did as a teenager, which is to fight against the wind as hard as I possibly could. I got really, really tired, and I didn't get very far. And then after this epiphany in the Navy, when I was about 18, 19 years old, I realized that, hey, you know what? I'm going to just trust in the wind here and see what happens. I'm going to put the wind in my back. And since then, very bizarre, wonderful, crazy life experiences have happened that all continue to lead me towards something. Now, none of these seem to be finite for me. They seem to be stepping stones. And at some point I might reach the top of the mountain and say, oh my gosh, this is where I was supposed to be. But that hasn't happened yet. And I'm assuming for most of you, it hasn't happened yet either. But climbing a mountain, the mountain of your life, with the wind at your back, is a much, much better experience. It's a much easier experience. Sometimes you need to trust your gut, trust your higher power, trust the universe that you are going to continue to move in the direction that force wants you to move. And when you look back, much like I have, and I look back over the last 20 years of my life, there have been some experiences that I wouldn't really put up there as the greatest experiences. But I'm thankful for those experiences, because if it wasn't for those experiences, good, bad, or indifferent, I wouldn't be where I am now, which at this point in my life, I am happy. And I wish for all of you to be at a point in your life where you have some level of happiness. And if you don't have some level of happiness, check where the wind is. Which way are you facing? Are you facing the wind and challenging the wind and not getting very far and getting really tired? Or is the wind at your back? And sometimes when the wind is at your back, your feet might be off the ground, so you might feel a little bit out of control. And you might be sitting there saying, oh my gosh, where's the wind taking me this time? But it's so much easier of a life to strap yourself into that security cable. Let the wind take you where the wind wants to take you. See where it goes. Take time. Write down that perfect day. Write down what would truly make you happy. Because if you don't know where you want to go, the wind is not going to as easily blow you in that direction. And even if you write something down and the wind says, man, that's not where you should go, that doesn't mean the wind is going to put you in your face and slow you down and get you tired. What's probably going to happen is the wind is going to blow you in that direction, and then all of a sudden another wind is going to blow you somewhere else, and you're going to feel really comfortable of the direction that you're handing and moving. So guess what? Trust in the wind. Trust in yourself. Trust in the fact that if you take that episode and clear your brain, relax, breathe, occupy all of your senses, give yourself that true point of clarity and mental break, it is unbelievable where your brain will go from there, because you gave it a much-needed break. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys again on the other side of the mic very soon.
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy life to listen to our podcast. Remember, a single change, no matter how big or small, can start you on your path to live your best life possible. You deserve it. We will see you on the other side of the mic soon. Have a wonderful day.